My name is Holly Hody, and I want to welcome all of the family and friends here today. Um, thank you for, whoops, someone just, I think, dropped. Thank you for joining. Go ahead. Okay. Thank you for joining us for the first CSB Storytellers Academy performances. Today, we're going to get to hear true personal stories crafted and told by 6 delightful students in this order: Hermione, Juan, then we'll have an intermission, Viv, Ivan, Aisha, and Justice. And again, we are going to have a 10-minute intermission. We'll have the first 2 storytellers, and after the intermission, the other 4.
Okay, well, we are going to get started with our beautiful performers. Please welcome our first storyteller, Hermione Chavez. She is 14 years old and heading to 9th grade in the fall. Hermione is interested in being a social worker.
So I used to be this quiet, disobedient, and quiet girl, but now I do things my own way and speak up for myself. So in 2015, I had a brain tumor, and so I had to have surgery, and that's when I lost my vision. Before the surgery, I had vision, but after the surgery, I lost it, but not completely. And that made things really hard. It was so hard to adjust to the world because I was learning Braille. I was trying to learn more about myself, and it was so hard. And especially on going out, because I had to be this obedient girl, following what my mom would say specifically. So in stores and visiting friends, and it was more difficult in parties because I was listening to these people just laughing and listening and just smiling and having fun, and I'm just sitting on the side, and I just feel so alone and sad. And that's why it was so hard, and that's why I didn't like going out, because I couldn't be myself. That's why I always liked being at home. And it was just super hard, and I really didn't like going out. So in parties, I would always be sad and start crying because I would feel alone. I would always go to the bathroom and start crying. But in these parties, there were these 2 specific parties which were very different. In one party, it was my mom's friend's birthday, and so it was a lot of noise and a lot of chatting. I would feel alone, and so I would always go to the bathroom and start crying. But in another party, this party was different. It was in a quinceañera. And so it all started normally. I felt sad and alone. People were chatting, and I was going to the bathroom again, and I cried like 3 or 4 tears, but then I stopped, and I felt the world stop around me. And then I asked myself, is this really sadness? Or is it just my brain playing tricks on me? And so from then, I started observing myself and asking myself questions. and what are my likes, what are my dislikes, and I started speaking up. So I used to be this obedient, quiet girl, but now I do things my own way and speak up for myself. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, Hermione. All right. Our second storyteller is Juan Ledesma, who is 18 years of age and graduated from high school this year, part of the class of 2021. Juan will be attending CSB in the fall, and he likes to play video games.
Okay, here we go. So, it was the beginning of sixth grade 7 years ago. The VI teacher brought an iPad in the classroom I was working at. And when I opened the iPad, I noticed that it was talking. So I asked the VI teacher, what is it? What is that on the iPad that's speaking to me? And she said, it's a screen reader called VoiceOver. So, as you guys may know or not know, for those who don't know, I am blind, which means I cannot see a screen at all. So that's why I need VoiceOver. And VoiceOver is a screen reader for those who cannot see. So when I heard it, it said something like press home to unlock, or yes, and it said like press home to open. And then I think the iPad was like probably an early model of like the iPad, the very first one. I'm just guessing. And I was intrigued with VoiceOver. I felt very curious on how it worked. So I started to experiment with VoiceOver. And I then I was curious to learn more, of course. And then I started to learn more with it. And now fast forward 5 years later, I got my very first phone, an iPhone 6S. And it was a good phone, but when I noticed that it didn't have VoiceOver on it, then I felt worried because it 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 um it wasn't set up yet. So and I was going to summer school that day. I got it. And I asked Mr. who was 21 at the time to help me set up VoiceOver so I can use a phone by myself. So she did. And then when we got back to school, I started to learn more on my phone with VoiceOver. I started to learn more about VoiceOver with another VI teacher. She taught me more on how VoiceOver worked. And it was something to learn. And now I'm learning how to use the computer version of VoiceOver. And I am learning more And now I'm a voiceover expert. Thank you.
Woo! Thank you, Juan. Wonderful. We're ready to begin again. And I thought maybe we are ahead of schedule. And I thought maybe we could take just a second to introduce ourselves because I don't think we really did, the teachers of the class. We're so excited to hear our storytellers. I'm Marisa Smith. I'm a school psychologist at California School for the Blind, one of 3 teachers.
Yeah, and I'm Tamar Solomon. I'm a speech and language therapist at the California School for the Blind. Also number 2 of 3 teachers.
And hi, I'm Holly Hody. I'm a teacher of the visually impaired at the California School for the Blind in the elementary department. And welcome, everybody.
And welcome. Yes, thank you. We are just so delighted to hear our storytellers today. We've had such a great experience with them over the last 12 days of Summer Academy. Well, I bet our next storytellers are anxious to share their stories with you. All right. Well, please welcome our 3rd storyteller, Viv Maniago, who is 13 years old, almost 14, going into 8th grade in the fall. Whenever you're ready, Viv.
Okay. If you knew me in 2nd grade, you probably would have thought I was rude. You would have noticed that I got frustrated easily. This was all because I had this one really good friend named Alex. I think we met in 1st grade because I fell and he helped me up, but I don't really remember. But then he invited other people to the group too, like this guy named Gus. And I didn't want other people in the group because I have a vision impairment and a hearing impairment. The fact that I had a hearing impairment made it hard to be in larger groups of friends because it was harder to listen to both of them. And I was only in 2nd grade, so I couldn't advocate for myself too well. I would always just walk away from the group and try to tell on them, even though I didn't even know what I was telling on them for. I even hit a boy once. I felt really sorry for hitting him, but I didn't know why I hit him. I don't know why I hit him because I didn't know why I was frustrated. I remember I got into trouble with my 2nd grade teacher because she thought I was being rude to Gus for no reason. By the time I was in 4th grade, I started to better advocate for myself. I told Alex why this stuff happened in 2nd grade. I don't remember how he responded, but I was getting a bit more comfortable, but not as much as I was in 5th grade. I did try to become friends with Sam and invited in 3rd and 4th grade respectively. And it didn't work out, but in 4th grade, I became friends with Sam, the person Alex invited in 3rd grade. When I was in 5th grade, I started not caring as much if I had more friends because I had made some more friends in my school. I was able to advocate more, like telling them to speak in my right ear or lean close, and my friends were cool with it. Now I'm the kind of person who is fine with talking in large groups, although it's usually still hard. I realized now that I was frustrated because he joined the group and I wasn't sure I would be comfortable talking to him because I had had enough experiences with one person and maybe I didn't want to get used to a second person. Meeting new people comes easier now, and I don't get frustrated about that as easily. Thank you.
Woo!
Oh, Viv!
Right there. Very nice.
Thank you so much. And students, we will get down all the information, that all the shout outs in the chat, and share them with you tomorrow, by the way. You may or may not be viewing them. All right. Thank you, Viv. And we are now ready to welcome our fourth storyteller, Ivan Solorzano, who is going into the 7th grade in the fall. Juan is a game enthusiast. Whenever you're ready, Juan.
Juan?
I'm sorry, Ivan. Ivan, whenever you're ready.
I'm ready. So it all started on June 8th of 2019 and ended on June 9th. It was one morning that I woke up and turned on my speaker and was dancing to the music of my favorite band, Grupo Cual. And I was dancing and dancing, but eventually my parents got mad, so I had to turn off the music. So then I just had breakfast with them. We had I think it was eggs of some kind. I don't know what it was, but I definitely know it wasn't hard boiled. Yeah, and then I just went through my day. Then I took a shower. I got casually dressed with blue denim jeans and a white button shirt. That'll be relevant later. But yeah, after that, I was dancing again, so I had to clean myself with one of my old shirts that I didn't use anymore, from my sweat. And then we left. But first we passed by my sister's house and we stayed there for a bit. And then I was talking to them, and it was hot in there. It was 110 degrees out. And then I went outside and I found my nephews in a box. So I tried dumping them out and they just rolled onto the grass. And then we were playing in the mud, but I was just hitting the stick in the mud. And then I was trying to splash them with the mud, but then my uncle got mad because I had a white shirt. That's why I said it would be relevant later. And then we went to Pollo Loco, had a dinner there, with chicken and stuff, cause we were hungry. And then we finally got to the concert around 6. Around 6 p.m. of June 8th. And then everyone was doing their sound check, and there was a bunch of flashing lights. And Grupo Cual was doing the first sound check, and then after they were done, we met them over there, close to the stage, but not on it. And then since my uncle followed them on Facebook, he asked if we could take a selfie with them, and they said yes. So we had a selfie, and then they kind of told me that I might go up on stage later, and then I was internally saying yay, but then I told you yes, thank you. I'd be really honored if I do. So then we parted ways, and then we went to our seats, which were kind of in the front. And then there was 8 bands, and the second to the last band, well, it was super long. I had 15 songs, and then at the 14th or 15th song, I was oh my gosh, can you just end already? Since I knew that was the second to the last, since it was already 2 a.m. at this point. And then then it finally ended. And then there were just the DJs of my band Grupo Cual were just getting ready and stuff. They were just getting ready, and then they finally got everything ready, their instruments. So, and then they started playing, and at the 7th song they called me up on stage, so I went up the stairs with my uncle, and then we went up on stage. And then on the 7th song I started using this thing, the instrument, rough, and the stick you hit it with is like a knife, and it looked like a cup but without a bottom. And in Spanish, it's called un huidito. Yeah, and then I was like, and then I was just like hitting it, doing it to the rhythm, and then I was so excited. I was like pumped up with energy at that point. And then, but before I started that, let's rewind back, cause I gave the audience a speech first before we started the 7th song. I told them I was honored to be there, and I was like my favorite band in Mexico and stuff, and in the U.S. because they travel Mexico and the U.S. and stuff. And then I was like, I was honored to be there, and I was really excited. So then they started the song, and then I was like hitting the huidito with a like knife stick handle thingy. And then at the 8th song, they saw I was getting tired, so they let me down stage, and then I felt like really tired, so I had to sit down, and I was just singing along to the last 2 songs, but I really wasn't like dancing anymore because I was really tired at that point, since it was like 2:30 or 3 in the morning, and then I had to get up because they were closing down, and it was like, do we really have to go? I'm tired. And then he was like, yeah, don't you want to go to bed? My uncle was like, yeah, don't you want to go to bed? And then I was like, yeah. So then we got out of there. We saw one of my uncle's old friends, so we said hi, and yeah, and then we left, and then it was like a 1 hour 30-minute car ride, so I slept in the car, and then then I slept in the car. I woke up like when we got home, but not quite yet. Like we were still like 15 minutes away, and then when we got home, my whole family was waiting for us, and then I just ate like leftover pizzas from June 7th because there was still like 2 or 3 slices left. Yeah, that's what I think it was. And then I went to bed thinking about the events that transpired, that I went up on stage, and I noticed I was like the kind of person that really liked to perform up there and was really excited and not really nervous at the point when I was up on stage. And then I just drifted off to sleep. Thank you.
Woo! Awesome. Woo! All right. Thank you, Ivan. Wonderful. All right. Well, we are ready to welcome our 5th storyteller. Aisha Safi is 12 years old and going into the 6th grade in the fall. She also will be attending CSB in the fall. Whenever you're ready, Aisha.
At the beginning of 4th grade, I was really sensitive about being laughed at. Whenever I got laughed at, I would get angry sometimes for a few days. In the middle of 4th grade, I was walking with my friend Lisbeth at recess as usual. When we walked past a bench with a fence behind it, she saw that one of our classmates was sitting there looking sad. I tried to help her cheer him up. I was saying something to our classmate when Lisbeth started laughing. I was really confused because I didn't know what there was to laugh about. So I asked her why she was laughing, and she said that I was talking to thin air because our classmate had walked away. I didn't know that he had walked away because I am completely blind. I got really angry at Lisbeth because she had laughed at me. I also felt sad and embarrassed. I stayed angry at her for 3 days. I finally stopped being angry at her. Now I'm not so sensitive about being laughed at. I won't laugh with the person laughing at me, but I don't get so angry. Also, when I look back now, I can see how funny it must have been. After all, I was talking to a bench. Thank you.
Thank you,
Nice job,
Aisha.
Aisha.
Very nice. All right, we are ready for our sixth storyteller. And before I introduce him, I just want to say thank you to all the families that are here. Also, I know we will say something similar in a couple of minutes, but we know that your child being able to attend this class is so hard over Zoom because it's in your home. And same with the performances. And we know that families have things going on even during the performances. And we just so appreciate you creating whatever space and time you can for your student. So thank you. Okay, our sixth storyteller, Justice Carkner, is 17 years old, going into his junior year in the fall. Justice has 36 animals, 5 different species of animals. All right, Justice, we're ready when you are.
Hi, I have cerebral palsy, which is a condition for me that makes my right hand and my legs harder to use and more stiff. And so when I was 6 years old, doctors told me I would never, ever be able to walk. And when that was happening, I had no idea what was going on because a 6-year-old has no idea what's happening really, like maybe, but they don't remember it later. But so the doctors told my parents and I would never be able to walk. And my mom is one of those people that if she hears the word no for me, like something that she thinks would be better for me, she would basically research and research. And so 3 years within this story is within 3 years, we went to at the time we lived up in Washington State. And so we drove all the way down to Stanford and had what's called a gait lab analysis done, which is where they basically make a computer model of my walking with a lot of different types of sensors and cameras. And so after that gait lab analysis, why I had that gait lab analysis done is because we were suspecting I might have a surgery called a dorsal rhizotomy, but doctors were not sure if it was going to work. So the Stanford doctor said, no, he's not eligible for the surgery. My personal doctor said he's not eligible for the surgery, but we were still holding out hope because we contacted another doctor in St. Louis that made the surgery invented the surgery. And so he said, bring him on down. And this surgery is where they sever muscles or tendons in your back to make your muscles a little less tighter to walk. And after I went to St. Louis, I was there for a couple of days, and then I got back to Seattle and went directly to my hospital there because I had to have physical therapy every day in the hospital for a month. And then as soon as I got home, I had to have physical therapy for a year, 5 days a week. And while I was at the hospital, my dad and good friends of ours was turning a shed into a therapy room so I could have therapy at my house a few times a week and have physical therapy at her house, at my therapist's house, other days of the week. And so after after I got home from the doctor hospitals, I put I set a goal for myself. I'd walk 80 steps by the end of the summer or by the school year. And I set that goal. It was the first physical goal I ever set for myself. It was the best thing that I've done in my life, I feel like. That was major in my life. And so my mom said she would throw the biggest party you have ever seen. And this is when I'm 9 years old. So just giving some perspective. And so I went to my cousin's baseball game, and I guess I was feeling well enough to try and walk 80 steps. And the whole audience of the baseball game clapped for me after I walked these 80 steps. It was so hard because the ground was uneven anyway, and I was a new walker. And well, I was new to walking. And I walked those 80 steps. And then I'm pretty sure I fell down. But it was so funny to me because my cousin was pitching at the baseball game, and he told me later, I had no idea what was going on in the stands because they did nothing good on the field or whatever, or amazing. And so it's so cool to see people who don't even know me congratulate me for getting a goal of walking 80 steps. And if it wasn't for my family, my extended family, my doctors, and my physical therapist, I wouldn't be walking today. I would be stuck in a wheelchair. Thank you.
Nice job, Justice.
Thank you,
Hey.
Justice.
Great. So let's give one more big round of applause for all of our performers.
Woo!
Okay, so thank you. Oh, I had lost internet for a minute, so I am sorry, guys. So thank you all for coming.
Kind of an impromptu thing, but while while members of the audience are putting last minute in their chat, I think we have a few more. Does anybody have any questions for our storytellers?
Ooh.
We finished early. Probably, yeah, just shout out if
I
you
have
did.
a question.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay.
This is Jennifer. I have a question for the storytellers. I was wondering how the storytellers chose their topics.
Ah. Any students want to respond how you chose your topic for your story?
How I chose my topic is it was a life-changing event for me. And like, if it wasn't for doctors, and especially my mom, Jody, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be walking today. I would probably be stuck in a wheelchair. So it's very powerful to me and my whole family. So that's how I chose mine.
I chose mine because like almost like Justice said, it's a life-changing event, and I felt comfortable sharing it. That's how I chose mine.
Hmm?
Juan, how did you choose your story?
I chose it because I felt like it was very, very nice to tell. And I felt like there were people who don't know about voiceover and what it is about, and and I also know some people who are in my shoes that need it, and I feel like I'm helping them. So yeah.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Viv or Aisha? Or Ivan?
I chose my story because I told it before in this class, and the people I was telling it to liked it, so I decided to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, do we still have Viv or Ivan here?
So it's optional if you guys
Yeah,
want
it's optional. You don't have to.
Okay. I chose my story because it was kind of like life changing, and I like knew that I really liked performing up on stage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What a great question. I loved hearing the answer too.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I heard the theme, life-changing events.
Yeah.
I also heard a theme of sort of perspective taking, thinking about other people being in your same shoes or what might be interesting to another person, or getting audience feedback, having a story and getting positive feedback from the audience. So thank you. Very interesting.
Thanks for coming, Jennifer.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming, everybody. Just another minute. If you had any other last minute shout outs for the chat, we have copied them so we can share them with the students. So, all right.
And how are we doing? Is it?
Pretty much, I'll just share one chat that pertains to everybody. This just seems like a really nice
Mhm.
moment. It's from B. Clee. One of you out there probably, this is undoubtedly a person in your life. I'm not sure who they are, but it says, it was nice to hear all these moving stories that showed how strong and resourceful you are. Woo, I can agree with that. Hear, hear.
Beakley is Barbara, my mom's friend.
Oh, lovely. So
Awesome.
glad she came. All right. Well, thank you so much, audience. We loved having you here.